And here we are once again, my brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another Living Hope Today study. Thank God for you. I'm glad you're here. Today we find ourselves in Leviticus chapter 6. Again, Leviticus can seem so, I don't want to say irrelevant, but how do we relate to all these sacrifices? How do we relate to all these commands and methods of doing things? What is God trying to teach us here? Well, I want you to step back from this whole story in Leviticus for a second and just think about this. The Israelites have spent 400 years in Egypt. Egypt was worshiping pagan gods all throughout those 400 years, including demanding that Pharaoh himself be worshipped. Imagine the practices that they had adopted or been exposed to as they lived their lives in that Egyptian culture. Well, God is rooting all that out of them. And so in some ways, when we see what God requires in Leviticus, we should think about how they are abandoning what they used to do in Egypt and now turning to do what God requires of them. It's a critical distinction. So it's not just the pagan nations that they will be invading as God gives them the land, but it's also the 400 years of heritage in a pagan idolatrous culture that God is going to fix in the book of Leviticus. Let's look at it together. As we get to the first verse of the 6th chapter, we see this. The Lord said to Moses. Again, that's one of our cues. When we see that the Lord said to Moses, he's usually bringing up a new topic. All right, what does he say here? If anyone sins. Well, that would apply to everybody in the camp, wouldn't it? Okay, so we know that everybody sins, but look at this, and is unfaithful to the Lord. Okay, so what is that telling me? That when I sin, I'm being unfaithful to the Lord. Okay, well, how can I be unfaithful to the Lord? Well, look here, it says by deceiving his neighbor. Okay, so if I lie to my neighbor, I'm unfaithful to the Lord. If I deceive my neighbor about something that is entrusted to me or left in his care or stolen, or if he cheats him, look at these things. Everything that we do when we deceive or cheat our neighbor or steal from our neighbor or we're not responsible with what he's put in our care, we are being unfaithful to the Lord. Or if he finds lost property and lies about it, or if he swears falsely, or if he commits any such sin that people may do. That's a pretty broad statement, isn't it? We're unfaithful to the Lord when we do these things. Hey, I need to borrow your lawnmower. Oh, but we shouldn't have used the word borrow, right? Because you never brought it back. Hey, I need to borrow some money from you, but I shouldn't have used the word borrow because I'm never going to pay it back. These are examples of being unfaithful to the Lord. And here we are in Leviticus 6. God's addressing this kind of situation. And he says, when he thus sins and becomes guilty, here's what we're going to do. First, he must return what he has stolen. Okay, so you borrowed that money, but you never paid it back. Okay, pay it back. You return what he has stolen or taken by extortion. Like maybe you really intended to just steal it the whole time. All right? Or what was entrusted to him, or the lost property he found. Again, various scenarios of ending up with something that doesn't belong to you, or whatever it was he swore falsely about. He must make restitution in full. Okay? So first, what do? We pay back that person that we owe. Right? Whatever that is, okay? Whether in the case of the Israelites, maybe you took somebody's goat or you have their money or whatever, okay? But then what? Well, add a fifth of the value to it and give it all to the owner on the day he presents his guilt offering. Wow, so God has a 20% premium that he's going to add to the debt of the extortioner or the thief or the one who lied about taking somebody else's stuff. Interesting, right? The Lord tells us to lend our money to each other without interest. But here he says, if somebody just deceives you and takes your money without any intention of paying you back when they come to grips with their sin, let's put a 20% penalty on top of it. Oh, okay. And pay him back. That's the point. As you bring your guilt offering to the Lord. In other words, gee, I'm sorry isn't enough. God says, pay him back, pay him an extra 20% for their trouble. All right? That's what the guilt offering requires. And as a penalty, he must bring to the priest, that is, to the Lord. Okay, so we paid back the owner. Now we're going to pay back the Lord as a penalty. All right? Bring to the priest, that is, to the Lord. I just want to point this out. It's obvious, I guess, but maybe it's not. When these people are dealing with the priests are the mediator between them and God. Okay? And they're the mediator between God and man. And here we see it. Bring to the priest, and then it says, but wait a minute, that is to the Lord. So to do this to the priest is, by extension, doing it to the Lord. Okay? He must bring to the priest, that is, to the Lord, his guilt offering, a ram from the flock, one without defect, and of the proper value. Okay, so we're paying the guy back that we owe. We're getting a 20% penalty on top of that. And now we're going to lose a ram from our flock of proper value. So it's quite costly to steal from your neighbor in the book of Leviticus. In this way, the priest will make atonement for him before the Lord, and he will be forgiven. Notice God's heart. I'm not striking you dead. The lightning bolt isn't going to come and eliminate you. The ground isn't going to open up and swallow you. I'm giving you a way to come to me on my terms. And if you come to me on my terms, I will forgive your sin. It carries into the New Testament, doesn't it? We don't come to God any way we want. We come to God through faith in Jesus Christ. That's coming to God on his terms. If we're willing to surrender our lives to him, become living sacrifices, deny ourselves, take up our cross, follow him, God forgives us. God saves us, brings us into his kingdom. If we try to come to God on our own terms, with whatever we think we want to do, guess what? We're going to be rejected because we didn't do what God wanted. Here it is in Leviticus 6. You're going to be forgiven if you do these things. For any of these things he did that made him guilty, God says, I'm going to forgive you if you'll come to me on my terms. The Lord said to Moses, there is that phrase again, give Aaron and his sons this command. Oh, now we're talking to Aaron and his sons. That means the priests. These are the regulations for the burnt offering. Okay, remember the burnt offering we learned about a few chapters ago? Now God is going to tell the priests what they're supposed to do regarding the burnt offering. We found out what the sinner is supposed to do, and some of what the priest is supposed to do, but God's going to embellish on that here. Okay, the burnt offering is to remain on the altar hearth throughout the night till morning, and the fire must be kept burning on the altar. Okay, so don't take that burnt offering off the altar. And what? Keep the fire burning. Somebody needs to keep stoking the fire all night. The Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons this command. These are the regulations for the burnt offering. Oh, guess what? I put that in twice. Please excuse me. I do this early in the morning, and sometimes it's too early. The priest shall then put on his linen clothes with linen undergarments next to his body, and shall remove the ashes of the burnt offering that the fire has consumed on the altar, and place them beside the altar. So now we're talking about what the priest is supposed to wear when he removes the ashes and puts them beside the altar. He's supposed to wear linen. Then he is to take off those clothes, take off the linen, and put on others. Doesn't have a specification right there. And carry the ashes outside the camp to a place that is ceremonially clean. So that burnt offering ends up outside the camp in a place that's ceremonially clean. The fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Every morning the priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire and burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on it. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out. Okay, Mr. Priest, so we don't have to wonder about whether we should let the fire go out or not. God is emphatic. Hey, keep the fire burning on the altar. Okay? Simple enough. The priest has something to do 24/7. Make sure the fire is burning. These are the regulations for the grain offering. Okay, we move out of that burnt offering into the grain offering. Aaron's sons are to bring it before the Lord in front of the altar. All right, what are they supposed to do? The priest is to take a handful of fine flour and oil together with all the incense on the grain offering and burn the memorial portion on the altar as an aroma pleasing to God. We've heard that before. Aaron and his sons shall eat the rest of it. Okay, so the priests eat the grain offering that's not consumed by the fire, but it is to be eaten. There's some restrictions on eating it without yeast and in a holy place. They are to eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. So we know where they're supposed to eat it. We know that there's supposed to be no yeast. And when we see this word holy place, we need to think that God's telling us, eat this in a sacred place that's been set apart for me. That's really the thrust of that idea of a holy place. But you guys need to eat it. That's it. It must not be baked with yeast. God says it again. I don't want yeast. Remember, symbolically in the Old Testament, even in the New, yeast symbolizes sin. Okay? It increases from within, and somehow it has become linked to that. God says, I don't want any yeast in this. I have given it as their share of the offerings made to me by fire, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. It is most holy. Once it's in my presence, once it's in my tabernacle, it is set apart for me. It's not just regular anymore. It's sacred, set apart for me. Any male descendant of Aaron, okay, so now we're talking about generations to come, may eat it. It is his regular share of the offerings made to the Lord by fire for the generations to come. Whatever touches them will become holy. So here we go. God is now establishing, or at least reiterating, the Levitical priesthood. The Lord also said to Moses, this is the offering Aaron and his sons are to bring to the Lord on the day he is anointed. So now we're talking about anointing Aaron, a tenth of an ephah of flour as regular grain offering, half of it in the morning, half of it in the evening. Prepare it with oil on a griddle, bring it well mixed, and present the grain offering broken in pieces as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The son who is to succeed him as anointed priest shall prepare it. It is the Lord's regular share. It is to be burned completely. So this share belongs to the Lord. Again, sometimes this is known as the ordination offering. We're talking about ordaining or letting the priesthood have succession, where there's somebody else, one's retiring and one's beginning, all right, as the generations hand the torch from one to the next. Every grain offering of a priest shall be burned completely. It must not be eaten. That's the burnt part. The Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron and his sons, these are the regulations for the sin offering. Okay, so we've had the burnt offering, the grain offering. Now we have the sin offering. The sin offering is to be slaughtered before the Lord in the place the burnt offering is slaughtered. Again, it is most holy. It is set apart for sacred use. It's come into my presence. Now it's more than what it looks like. The priest who offers it shall eat it. It is to be eaten in a holy place, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches any of the flesh will become holy. Look at that. And if any of the blood is spattered on the garment, you must wash it in a holy place. All right, so again, provision for the priest through the sin offering, but any sin offering whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place must not be eaten. It must be burned. So God makes a distinction. If atonement is the issue, then that whole sacrifice needs to be burned and destroyed. We don't consume it. If it's a sin offering, then okay, the priest can have it. But if it's a sin offering for atonement's sake, it has to be completely destroyed and removed. A lot of rules, a lot of specifications, and yet God has a purpose. And you remember the test question, don't you? What is the main theme of Leviticus? Are you going to put it in the comments? How can an unholy people exist in the presence of a holy God? That's the theme. That's what we're running through. These are the provisions God has provided to make that possible, at least for the Old Testament believer. In the New Testament, we'll see the fulfillment of all these things in the person and work of Jesus Christ. God bless you, church. Serve him well today.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God, and he's the brightness of his glory. The future